Hey, high school literacy leaders, this is DLC Foster Yankee, and I would like to welcome you back to Curriculum Chats. In this video, I'll be discussing the third lesson in the first section of the Hamlet unit. Here are the goals, teaks, and ELPs for this lesson. Students will analyze how characters' behaviors and underlying motivations contribute to moral dilemmas that influence the plot and theme in the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2. They will evaluate how the historical and social context of setting influence the plot, characterization, and theme in Act 1, Scene 2, and evaluate Shakespeare's use of literary devices to achieve specific purposes in Act 1, Scene 2 of Hamlet. There's just one text for this lesson, a copy of the play Hamlet, and a couple of tools. We have the archetypal lens and political lens note-taking tools, the academic and annotating and note-taking discussion guides, as well as the Hamlet Section 1 question set. Our lesson overview states that we will continue to explore the excerpted passage from Act 1, Scene 1 of Hamlet, this time through an archetypal lens. We will also read the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2 and be introduced to the character of Claudius. We will analyze his lines through a political lens. So now we'll take a closer look at the 5 activities that make up Lesson 3. So activity 1 picks up where activity 6 of lesson 2 left off. Students are in groups discussing at least one word or phrase they added to their vocabulary journal and discussing their responses to the guiding homework questions about lines 124 through 137. Answers to those questions are provided in the teacher's notes. Afterwards, they revise their annotations and notes in their learning log based on the group discussion. A suggested support is to provide students with a graphic organizer to retell the main events of each scene so that they can easily return to the text if they need to reread specific lines or scenes. This could also be an anchor chart that would make a great addition to the classroom environment. In Activity 2, students reread lines 124 through 137 again, this time through an archetypal lens, and discuss the questions on the screen right here as a class. As they discuss, they take notes on their archetypal lens note-taking tool. The purpose of this activity is structured as a whole class discussion because it is vital that students have a strong common understanding of the impending catastrophic conclusion to the play. Hearing from students at one time as a class might help the teacher gather information about what students understand and misunderstand about the language of the play. Some suggested supports are teacher modeling to complete an entry on the tool, including how to accurately cite act, scene, and line numbers. The teacher might also use the academic discussion reference guide to support students with having an academic discussion. Further supports would be to provide sentence starters for L's, also offer English learners the option to discuss the topic in small groups in their home languages, and report their discussion in English. Teachers might also prompt students to use academic vocabulary from their vocabulary journal and self-assess their own participation. For Activity 3, students use the political lens note-taking tool to record notes about the political lens. The political lens requires students to understand the concept of political power at the individual, national, and international levels. It is important for students to use this lens while reading Hamlet because of Claudius's desire to retain his power at all costs, the internal rotten state of Denmark, and young Fortinbras's threat of invasion. Students should also use this tool as a home base for guiding their work with the political lens. They will return to this tool several times throughout the unit. Some suggested supports. The line for note taking, again, is very small, so teachers may want to have students record their notes on the back of the page or in a notebook. The teacher also might print the notes or create fill in the blank notes for struggling writers to complete as the notes are shared. And again, all of this information, which is bulleted, would make a great anchor chart since it is something that students will be referring back to throughout the unit. In Activity 4, students are introduced to the character Claudius as they read lines 1 through 41 of Act 1, Scene 2, using the questions on the screen to guide their thoughts. This activity is also structured as a whole class discussion because it is vital that students have a strong common understanding that Hamlet's uncle Claudius has married his dead brother's wife and Hamlet's mother and is now the king of Denmark. Hearing from students as a class might help the teacher gather information about what students understand and misunderstand about the language of the play. Some suggested supports: due to the semantic density of Shakespearean language and the introduction of multiple key characters, it might be best for students to listen to a masterful reading of the scene as they follow along. These lines take approximately 3 minutes to read using Hamlet, the fully dramatized audio edition. Before reading, the teacher might provide students with context for Claudius's use of the royal we. If the class is mostly L's, the teacher might consider playing the audio version of the play aloud several times to provide multiple opportunities for the students to explore how to sound out new vocabulary. Students might also recite parts of the play with partners or small groups to practice sounding out the English vocabulary and monitor their progress toward learning the English sound system. For engagement, as students become more comfortable with the language and familiar with the characters, the teacher might have them read specific roles aloud. The final activity in this lesson is listed as homework. Students reread lines 1 through 41 of Act 1, Scene 2 through a political lens and use the questions on the screen to guide their notes on the political lens note-taking tool. In addition to their notes, they are to write down new or interesting words they encounter in their vocabulary journal. If necessary, revisiting the vocabulary and context tool to assist them with words or phrases they struggle with. Suggested supports would be to remind students to use the questions as a support for annotation and margin notes. If students struggle to comprehend the text through rereading it in a new lens, the teacher might reinforce the use of the annotating and note-taking reference guide. Right, so that brings us to our cub for this lesson. We have students will know the key features of the political literary criticism lens. They'll understand how the historical and social context or politics of setting influence the plot, characterization, and that should say theme in Act 1, Scene 2 of Hamlet. And they will be able to analyze how Claudius's behaviors and underlying motivations contribute to moral dilemmas that influence the plot and theme in the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2 of Hamlet using the political lens note-taking tool. Right, that's a wrap for this video. I welcome your feedback and look forward to hearing from you either on Twitter, via email, or in the comments. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe so you never have to worry about missing a video. Thanks for watching.